From repetitive motion comes strength! Keep repeating it! No way!
Training with a Hashira, the strongest swordsman in the Demon Slayer Corps, isn't a walk in the park, and for Tanjiro and the rest of the gang, it often felt like they were put through the grinder. Every Hashira had their own brutal training style, and while some had a hidden motive to push their trainees to their limits, others were just downright merciless. So today, we're ranking the Cruelest Hashira training based on how tough, terrifying, and traumatic they were for our beloved Demon Slayers. Let's dive right into it. Opening our list, we have Lord Tengen's Stamina Training, Sound Hashira. Kicking things off with the easiest of the bunch, and I use that term very loosely, we have the Sound Hashira's Stamina Training. For our boy Tanjiro, this was practically a walk in the park compared to the others. Why? Well, our spiky-haired protagonist had already built up some serious endurance from his previous adventures. The main event here was a twisted game of tag, with Lord Tengen playing the role of a demon while the trainees tried to take him down. Tanjiro even got the special task of protecting his buddies while attempting to defeat the Sound Hashira. Spoiler alert, they all failed miserably. But hey, at least they didn't give up, right? While they didn't win, the group was motivated to keep pushing their stamina to the next level. For Tanjiro, this was like a nostalgic trip down memory lane, training with a familiar face. Lucky him. It might have been a walk in the park for Tanjiro, but this was just the warm-up for the madness to come.
Come on now! Show me what you're made of, damn it!
So there's no way you can fight an upper rank, unless you have stamina like that?
Lord Takito's rapid movement training, Mist Hashira, occupies the 5th spot. You'd think training with the Mist Hashira would be all about calm, subtlety, and grace, but nope. This man's training regimen was like jumping into a storm. His brutal no-nonsense attitude had him demanding real swords for sparring, which could have easily ended in disaster for the trainees. Talk about taking no pain no gain to the extreme. Takito's aggressive approach came from a place of twisted concern. He didn't want his trainees getting killed by demons. How thoughtful. Tanjiro, being the gutsy kid he is, challenged Takito to a paper matching contest, something he learned from Mr. Kanamori to try and soften the Hashira's harsh methods. Of course, Tanjiro lost all 10 rounds. But what came out of it was something even more valuable. Tanjiro managed to break through Takito's cold demeanor, creating a more harmonious atmosphere between him and the corp members. When Takito finally got around to training Tanjiro one-on-one, he admitted that our protagonist had improved. Of course, being Takito, he couldn't resist pointing out Tanjiro's flaws before shipping him off to the next Hashira.
It's time you move on to the next Hashira. Good work.
What? Seriously? But it's only been 5 days!
Yeah, but even so, you've mastered everything I taught you.
So, can we go with him too?
We have been here for 2 weeks now.
Did I say you could leave? You're all nowhere near ready.
Heading into 4th place, Mrs. Kenroji's flexibility training, Love Hashira. Don't let the love and love Hashira fool you. Kenroji's flexibility training was pure, unadulterated torture. Mitsuri Kenroji's training was anything but gentle. Imagine jumping, stretching, and twisting your body into near-impossible positions. The sight of Kenroji manhandling, stretching one of the trainees was enough to send shivers down Tanjiro's spine. And the cherry on top. The trainees, including Tanjiro, were forced to wear bikinis with waist ties around them, a hilarious but humiliating sight. But the laughter was quickly drowned out by the screams of agony. Tanjiro's agonized screams of flexibility is hell. Perfectly sum up this deceptively brutal training regimen. The excruciating pain he and the others felt from Mrs. Kenroji's stretching techniques was enough to drive even the toughest slayers to their breaking point. Who knew love could hurt so much?
No, that's not how I taught you. I'll show you how it's done. Let's switch. Here we go.
This isn't limbering up, it's torture!
Iguro's sword skills training, Snake Hashira. Next, at my number 3, we have the Snake Hashira Iguro, whose training was more psychological warfare than physical. Thanks to a little jealousy from Mrs. Kenroji's letter, where she casually mentioned having tea and pancakes with Tanjiro, Iguro's already harsh personality got even nastier. His approach? Tie the corp members to wooden materials and refer to them as obstacles. Yep, they were the literal barriers that Tanjiro had to avoid while striking targets positioned dangerously close to them. The trainees, understandably, were begging Tanjiro not to hit them as they squirmed in fear. The constant pleas of "please don't hit me" from the tied-up trainees really drive home how terrifying this exercise was. To make matters worse, Iguro would relentlessly attack Tanjiro while he attempted to hit the targets. It was like dodging a hurricane while trying to thread a needle. Tanjiro dubbed this whole ordeal an execution ground, and for good reason. After days of grueling training, Tanjiro finally managed to land a hit on Iguro's sleeve, and that small victory was enough for Iguro to pass him. But man, what a terrifying experience.
I'm only showing you once, so pay attention. And that's it.
Please don't hit me! Please don't hit me! Please don't hit us!
Himejima's muscle amplification training, Stone Hashira, takes the second spot. Now, if you thought the previous training was tough, just wait until you hear about Himejima, the Stone Hashira's muscle amplification drill. This guy doesn't mess around. His training was divided into 3 brutal segments. First, the trainees had to endure a freezing waterfall. Then they had to lift 3 heavy lumps of wood. And finally, they were tasked with moving a giant Buddha stone from one shore to another. Himejima's philosophy? The core is the most important muscle to train. Zenitsu fainted at the mere sight of the training drills. And who could blame him? It was intense. The sight of Tanjiro and Zenitsu shouting Nenbutsu at the top of their lungs while under the waterfall was hilarious. But it was no joke. The water nearly swept Zenitsu away. Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke managed to survive the first 2 drills, but the Buddha stone was a beast of its own. It was Genya who eventually gave Tanjiro the advice he needed to move the Buddha stone by using repetitive motion. Tanjiro succeeded, and not long after, Inosuke followed suit, leaving poor Zenitsu behind. Zenitsu never did move his stone, but instead started acting strangely after receiving a mysterious letter from a weird bird. With each impossible task, the trainees' resolve hardened like stone.
From repetitive motion comes strength! Keep repeating it! No way!
He did it! Tanjiro did it!
The most cruelest of this training goes to Shinazugawa's infinite slashing training, Wind Hashira. The Wind Hashira's infinite slashing training is less about technique and more about survival. When it comes to Shinazugawa, the Wind Hashira, you could cut the tension between him and Tanjiro with a sword. Their bad blood goes way back. Remember when Shinazugawa stabbed Nezuko, Tanjiro's sister? That ended with Tanjiro headbutting him, and ever since, they've been at odds. So when it was time for Shinazugawa's infinite slashing training, you already knew it was going to be brutal. Zenitsu was the first to panic, literally begging Tanjiro to help him escape what he called a nightmare. And honestly, he wasn't exaggerating. Shinazugawa's drill was simple on paper, just keep slashing endlessly without any breaks. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. The intensity was off the charts, borderline abusive. You either slashed until you vomited or passed out. There was no in-between. For Tanjiro, things were even worse because Shinazugawa had him marked as a special target. Let's just say the Wind Hashira wasn't holding back. Swollen cheeks, blackened eyes, and plenty of punches, Tanjiro took the brunt of Shinazugawa's wrath. It was less training and more like getting beaten up, but Tanjiro, being Tanjiro, endured it all. The tension exploded when Tanjiro tried to defend Genya, Shinazugawa's younger brother. What started as a disagreement escalated into a full-on brawl between the Wind Hashira and the rest of the trainees. Things got so intense that Tanjiro ended up suspended from training and was strictly ordered to stay far away from Shinazugawa, at least for a while. In Shinazugawa's world, survival was the lesson, and pain was the proof that you were learning.
Make up your mind. Either come back to training, or be killed where you stand!
Each Hashira had their own unique brand of cruelty when it came to training, from Takito's relentless rapid movement drills to Iguro's life-threatening sword skills. While some of the exercises seemed almost comical, like Kenroji's flexibility training, they all left their mark on Tanjiro and the other trainees. Whether it was physical pain, mental stress, or pure exhaustion, these training sessions proved that becoming a demon slayer under the Hashira's guidance is no easy feat. Kindly consider liking, subscribing, and activating notifications to stay updated on 7-Star Anime's latest content. Looking forward to connecting with you in our upcoming video.